Okay. So, okay. I'm just looking at the screen so that I can see comments. Actually, I'll keep my glasses on. Okay, so welcome everybody. I hope you're having a good day. My name is Maggie James and I am currently 30 weeks pregnant. So this is my second pregnancy and yeah, my toddler's just next door having dinner, so hopefully he will not bother us while I'm sharing this class with you. So the structure of the class will be the following. It won't be a normal yoga class because it will be focusing more on information that you can use in your own self-practice at home and when you go to, or when you Zoom or follow video classes online. So we will start just with a short grounding meditation, and for the purposes of this meditation I'm going to assume that everyone watching is pregnant as well. But if you're not pregnant and you're just watching this for information, you'll still get a nice meditation out of it, so don't worry. And what I invite you to have today is a wall space, so that you'll be able to then later do kind of modified leans against a wall. And it's good to have a mat, just if you like to have a mat for your practice, and it's good to also just be comfortable. So if you, at this stage of my pregnancy, I actually prefer to sit on a chair rather than get up and down, just because it's hard. So you'll see for yourself what works, but like I said, that's why I'm sitting on a chair, because it's more comfortable. So let's start with, and then towards the, for the last 15 minutes of the class, or even earlier if we get through all my material a little bit earlier, we will do a question and answer. So then you can type into the comments, just to the right of the YouTube video, and I will read out the comments and try and answer them to my best abilities. Okay. So find a comfortable seat. This can be cross-legged, sitting on a chair just normally. It can also be kneeling on blocks or cushions, and you can also use a wall to sit against. So really the purpose of finding a comfortable seat in pregnancy is to be at ease. So somewhere where you don't have to grip and you don't have to tense your body in order to stay still for a couple of minutes. Okay, close the eyes, and then just take a couple of movements with your shoulders, just rolling them out, maybe moving your neck side to side, just so you can get a sense of ease and comfort in your body. And then finding stillness, take a deep breath in through the nose, exhaling a soft sigh out through the mouth. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Exhale a big sigh out through the mouth. One more time, inhaling and exhaling. And now start to breathe in and out. If it's comfortable, through your nose. If you prefer to, you can continue to breathe in and out through the mouth as well. And try and consciously take deep inhales and long exhales. And then notice how your body is feeling. Notice if you are overall feeling a little bit overwhelmed, tired, heavy, or if you're feeling overall quite light, energized, inspired, or anything in between. Let your body speak for itself and tell you how it feels. And then once you have grounded yourself and observed how you feel, notice if you have any tensions in the body, maybe around the legs, the thighs, the hips, the pelvis, the stomach, the womb, the lower back. Maybe any tension around the chest or the upper back areas. Maybe any tension around the shoulders, the neck, the throat, or the jaw. Just observe what is true for you and what tensions might you be feeling. And then see if you can bring the breath to these areas to soften them, ease in the tension. And then once you have settled in your body and softened these areas and grounded yourself in your own body, you can bring the attention to your womb, to your little baby inside. If it feels nice, you can bring your palms onto your belly. And then as you inhale, feel yourself drawing light in through the nose. And as you exhale, feel the light spreading from your palms of the hands and through the umbilical cord to your baby and the womb. Every inhale, visualize the light, warmth coming in through the nose. And exhale, the light spreading through the umbilical cord, through the palms of your hands to your baby. So just observing this light coming in with the inhale. Sorry, I don't know what happened. I've reconnected now. I have already. Can you see it?
I think it's loading. Alright, cool. Let's carry on over WhatsApp.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
That comment I left, the last one, that comment is where we left off.
Okay. So sorry, guys. Phew. I apologize for the internet connection. So let's just, to ground ourselves back, we'll get back into our meditation. Close the eyes and then bring your palms onto your belly. And just observe the light coming in through the nose and spreading through the hands. And then as you focus on this light exchange between you and your baby, sorry, it looks like it's frozen again. Oh dear. So sorry, I'm just going to try and make sure that it's all working. Oh, okay. Oh, goodness me, so stressful with the internet. Okay, so now that we've established it's still working, just set your intention for this time today. It can be around the supporting and nourishment of you and your baby. It can be any other quality that you want to connect to. And bring a palm onto your heart, keep one hand on your womb, on your baby, and we'll seal this intention, open this practice with an arm all together. Take a deep breath in. And then bow your head, release the hands and start to flutter the eyes open and move your head just side to side, easing out any tension in the neck area. And then bring your palms together in front of you, push the palms away as you interlace the fingers around the upper back. As you inhale, press the palms up. Exhale, release the palms down, push the hands away. Inhale, press the palms up. Exhale, release the palms down, push the palms away. And inhale, extend them up. And then just keeping the hands together, take some movement side to side in squiggly movements all around. Really good. And then release the arms. So hopefully you feel a little bit lighter in your chest and in your upper back. And we'll get started on what I want to share with you today. So first things first. There are a couple of principles that you need to understand when you are pregnant in order to modify your practice. And then once you understand the principles, then you'll be able to make decisions in the moment and in the flow for your own practice and your own situation. So as you all know, when you're pregnant, your body goes through a lot of changes and a lot of hormonal changes. So what was normal and maybe easy for you before and healthy for you before might not anymore be the case. So I've put together a list of 5 principles to help you in your pregnancy practice, and you can find these on my website. I'm just going to pull them up as a reference for myself so that I don't lose my train of thought, and so that you can also follow it if you want to in order. Yes, so I'll just put the link into the comments now in case that helps you. Okay, so the most basic change in your body is that eventually after a couple of weeks or 10 weeks or even 15 weeks in some cases or 20 weeks, you'll have a little bump. So the first biggest rule is not to compress the bump, not to lie on your bump, and make space for it in all situations. So this includes you know, if you want to do anything on your belly, you have to prop yourself up with things in front of you and behind you, and generally it's easier to just avoid lying on your belly. Also, when you do a forward fold, you don't want to do it in a way that would compromise your belly, so you make space for it by stepping a little bit wider so that your belly can go between your legs. So this is number 1 rule: don't lie on your belly and don't compress it. And it's quite simple. When you compress the belly, obviously you compress a lot of the vessels and blood vessels that are going there, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to deprive your baby of oxygen. Okay, number 2 is it's very important that you do your own research. I can share the best I can with you in this 1 hour, but there's obviously more information to be gained, and so it's very important that you take some time and do a little bit of research. There's a lot of things that I didn't know in my first pregnancy, where I knew about it, but I didn't know how to relate it to myself. So one of these things is that your body starts to produce the hormone relaxin, which relaxes a lot of your ligaments and joints. And this means that the muscles then have to work extra hard to keep your keep your body stable and not collapsing. So one of the areas that this affects is the feet. Your arches might start collapsing more. It could affect the ankles. I've heard of a lot of pregnant women being a little bit less stable and getting into more accidents. It could affect the way your knees are, especially if they're already a little bit misaligned, so knocking in a little bit or knocking out a little bit. And it certainly affects the hips, especially where you're about to give birth. This whole area gets a lot looser. And of course it could affect your joints as well, especially if you're hypermobile, and then you end up doing a lot of down dogs or even some arm balances, and then you find that maybe your joints are not as stable and they might dislocate, so you have to be very careful. So even if you're a very confident practitioner in arm balances, you might want to just hold off of them for these 9 months, simply because your body is going through a major change in the stability of the joints. Okay, so other things that you need to be aware of in terms of your body changing is your blood pressure. If you have midwife appointments, they always take your blood pressure as one of the first things they do. And you're generally producing 50% more blood just to feed your womb than you would normally. So this definitely affects your blood pressure and generally makes it go lower. But some people it goes higher. So you have to be very aware of how your blood pressure is, and one of the best ways to notice is if you feel dizzy. That means that your blood pressure generally has dropped. It could also be that it's going too high. And what are the things that affect blood pressure a lot? You guessed it, downward facing dog. So you might find that, for example, a downward facing dog or a flow where you do a lot of ups and downs, that will affect your blood pressure a lot, and this is definitely something I found. So here are a few modifications that you can do for that, and I might talk you through about it a little bit later as well. So if you find that downward dog when your head is down makes you feel dizzy or nauseous, you can modify downward dog and do it against a wall, just so it's the same shape, similar benefits, but just less inverted with the head still staying above the heart. Or if you want to go a little bit deeper but just not quite as deep as the floor, you can do it with your hands a little bit lower. You can also use a chair, as long as it is sturdy and generally against a wall. You could use a chair or a table to just do the downward dog against, but I find the wall a lot more stable. So that's just another tip on blood pressure. And then there's other things that happen in pregnancy as well that might be different for everyone. So another very obvious one, and this is the third one I would mention, is holding the breath. So you don't want to generally be doing any pranayama, any breath work, where you're holding the breath and you're not just letting the breath go freely in and out. So if your teacher in a normal class is telling you to do a pranayama exercise, then you can either make them aware that you're pregnant and so you'll modify for yourself, or you don't even have to tell them. Generally they might not notice. And then you just make sure that whatever the exercise is, you're always taking calm and relatively balanced inhales and exhales. And you don't want to be practicing any forced breath, so any like Kapalabhati or skull shining pranayama, because that'll again make your blood pressure go quite high, and this is not something you want to play and mess around with when you're literally providing blood for someone else as well at the same time as yourself. Okay, so the third principle of practicing yoga while pregnant, I would say, is not to do any deep back bends, and there's a few reasons for this. One of the reasons is that when you're pregnant, your the muscles around your belly are already expanding massively, and most pregnant women will experience a split of their abdominal muscles where a gap is created between the middle of the muscle group. And this doesn't hurt normally, and I experienced it for sure. And maybe I experienced a little bit of like itchiness when my skin was stretching, but I didn't experience any pain from the muscles separating. However, once the muscles are separated, especially post-birth, once you don't have your womb in the way anymore, there's a big risk of herniation, so of your insides coming out, for lack of a nicer way of putting it. So you really want to be careful not to allow too much of a separation. And the more you do back bending, the more this area has to stretch inevitably. So especially with lower back bends. So for example, after 10 weeks, I think, I did wheel until about 10 weeks, or Vinyasa in my first pregnancy. And then after 10 weeks, I just noticed that it was stretching a little bit more than what I was used to experiencing in my previous practice. And so I stopped doing wheel after 10 weeks. In this pregnancy, I stopped doing wheel from the start, simply because I wasn't fully even healed together from my first pregnancy, and I just didn't see the point or the value of stretching it any further. That doesn't mean that you can't do upper back bends, so you can work extensively on the upper back, but just try and keep the lower back neutral. The second reason why you want to keep your back bends minimal and only to the upper back is because the lower back already experiences more pressure than normal, because there's the weight pulling it forward. So a very common stance that pregnant women have is kind of the belly and the butt sticking out. So this is me in a very relaxed, almost too relaxed posture. And you can see that my lower back is arching quite a bit. And when you arch the lower back continuously, it creates a lot of pressure on the discs. So worst case that could happen is a disc could slip or herniate, but you don't hopefully experience that. However, you could experience simple pain in this area just from arching it too much, sticking your bum out, sticking your belly out. Instead, what you want is kind of drawing everything into a neutral alignment and having a gentle engagement always in the glutes to support the lower back, as well as the deeper core, so the transverse abdominis muscles that are knitting together here. A lot of this information you can find on my website and also online, so don't worry if you're not sure what I'm talking about. But these are the two main reasons why I would leave out back bends. And a way I would modify, for example, for back bending is you can do puppy pose, for example, against a wall. So a very nice way of keeping the lower back relatively neutral but opening through the upper back is puppy pose against the wall, just so. And if you would like to do any kind of back bending, you can still lie on your back. After a certain amount of time, you want to generally prop yourself up and not lie directly backwards. So a way to modify bridge pose, for example, is to prop yourself up slightly and then just do gentle bridges, mainly working the glutes and the quads, but still getting a little bit of a bend in the back, but just not going very deep. And there's a number of other options you can do on my Instagram. There's also a very nice video of a restorative upper back opener that you can do if you're pregnant, and also if you're not pregnant or just after pregnancy, so that is safe for the lower back and opens the upper back. If you want a link to that, I'll post it in the comments as well. Okay, number 4, balance. So normally the part of the body that is responsible for balance is obviously the brain, and the brain receives information through fluid in the organ that is your ear. So normally your brain has time to adjust to how your body is growing and developing, and always supplies this information to the brain, and so the brain knows how to balance you in every given situation. However, when you're pregnant, you're suddenly gaining so much weight so fast and only in a particular area of your body that your balance is heavily affected. So if you're pregnant, I highly recommend practicing often against a wall and potentially avoiding poses where it is purely about balance and less about working range of motion in muscles and joints. So a simple example for this would be, for example, if you do Warrior 3, you can do it against with a wall, with a hand by the wall, but it could even be simple things like tree. You can do it with a hand on the wall. Just kind of support yourself. There's no point in being a hero more than you already are when you're pregnant, I would say. And the same goes for inversions. If you are still learning inversions, this is really not the time to be advancing in your inversion practice, because your body is continuously shifting, so your brain has no time to really learn where your point of gravity, where your center of gravity and where your points of balance are, because it's continually shifting. So if you've been working on your inversions, that's really good, but just pause it for now, and I promise you can pick it up after your birth. A little bit more about balance. The feet. So simply because you are a lot bigger than normal, I would recommend always having the feet at least as wide as your bump. And the more advanced I get in my pregnancy, I have my feet almost as wide as the mat, just to give me a more stable footing and better grounding. And that's how I would do sun salutes as well. And that's how I would do most poses. So for example, in a warrior one, if you would normally align your back heel and your back, the arch of the foot to the back heel, then I would actually in pregnancy step it out a little bit wider, for example. The other thing is I would also not go as deep into the lunges, because you want to kind of support the pelvic stability rather than stretch it out too much. So I don't go as far with my legs either in terms of length of stance. Okay, so the last thing is a pretty obvious one. Just always consult your medical professional. If you have bleeding, for example, or any specific conditions like blood pressure issues, or even just nausea, then yoga might not be the right thing for you at this moment, because yoga is a very, it's quite a dynamic practice. It can be quite dynamic, especially our classes, even the ones I teach, and you don't want to take any risks, basically. So do consult your medical professional. In practice, in the UK, if I were to ask my GP if I can continue my yoga, they would generally ask, have you been doing it till now? And then if I say yes, then they'll say, as long as I'm healthy and not showing any indications with blood pressure or other health issues, then they would say you can continue. But of course, it is up to you to make sure that you're modifying safely. So so these are the 5 principles that I've put on my website, and let me just remind myself if I've missed any. There's a few within the do your own research section, such as twisting, not holding things for long, and taking more rests. So twisting, they say same principle as not to compress the belly. So if you are lying on your belly, that would compress your belly. But also if you are twisting, doing a closed twist, I'll show you an example of a closed twist, like a seated twist. That is generally compressing the belly because you're not giving it proper space. So when I do the closed twist, I can't even demonstrate it properly now, but I'm compressing my belly with my leg, and then I'd be squeezing it with my arm as well. Instead, you can do open. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think it's working again. Okay, I'm really sorry. So I think the last thing I said was around twists. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what I was saying, we were just about to explain open twists. Okay, open twists, thanks. So when I'm doing a closed twist, this leg is pressing against my belly, this arm would be pressing against my belly. It's no good for the belly, it's no good for the blood supply or for the baby, and it won't help you. So do an open twist instead. So instead of closing the legs, you open the legs. Instead of twisting against the leg, you twist away from the leg, just so. So while everyone is doing a closed twist, for example, this is seated twist, or this would be a extended side angle twist, just so. Instead you do an easy open twist like that, or you can open your legs a little bit more and do an easy twist but without blocking your belly. So giving yourself a lot more space. Yeah, so that's about twisting. And yeah, okay, so the next thing I was going to go through is a general Vinyasa normally starts with Surya Namaskar A's and B's. So I was going to show you how I do that as a normal pregnant person, but with a slightly more advanced belly like mine, and then how I would do and instruct that as a person who has some blood pressure issues. So let's start with a normal pregnant person, but who has a slightly bigger belly than just a little bump. So in the beginning of my pregnancy, I would generally do the Vinyasa practice, Surya Namaskar A, almost like normal, but instead of doing I would never lie on my belly to do sorry, after chaturanga, a locust pose or a cobra. Thank you. Sorry, I had a brain stop there. So you can do this with me, and I'll instruct it so that you can feel it in your body. And if, of course, you don't feel right about doing it for any reason, just stop and just watch and observe. So first of all, my legs are wider, and then as I'm lifting up, inhale, as I exhale, I fold forward, but I soften my knees a little bit more than normal maybe, and widen my stance if I need to create space for my bump. As I inhale, I step my feet back to plank. As I exhale, I bring both knees to the floor. Then I lower just to half chaturanga, and instead of doing cobra or up dog, I just push back up. You can also do a little cow pose. Then I push back to downward facing dog, take a few breaths, and whenever I'm ready, I walk forward with my feet again much wider, lengthen my stance, exhale, fold. Inhale, soften the knees, rise all the way up, use the glutes to support your lower back in rising up, and exhale, standing tall. As your pregnancy advances, and also if you experience any pelvic instability, which I have, then instead of walking the feet forward and backwards like you would in a normal vinyasa, instead I stand at the back of my mat and I walk my hands forward and back. So I'll talk you through that now as well. This is still if you don't feel too dizzy from going up and down doing vinyasas. So I stand at the back of my mat, feet as wide, almost as wide as the mat, just to give me stability. As I inhale, opening the heart and the chest, exhale, softening the knees, folding forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, I walk my hands forward into a plank, exhale, knees down. If I don't want to do a chaturanga or a half chaturanga, I just do cat and cow. Inhale, opening the heart, and exhale, pushing back, downward facing dog. And then after a few breaths here, I walk my hands back towards my feet, lengthen the spine, and exhale, fold. Soften the knees, engage the glutes, stand all the way up, extending the arms up high, and exhale back to your wide-legged Tadasana. Okay, third variation for Surya Namaskar A's will be against the wall. This is if you don't feel very comfortable going up and down. As you can see, I'm even a little bit out of breath, just because we're responsible for a whole other life, and we're supporting it with our breath and with our oxygen, so it's completely normal to be a little bit dizzy. Okay, so standing in front of my wall, not too far. As I inhale, I extend my arms up, just like I would in Ardha Hastasana. Exhale, as I fold forward, I bring my hands to the wall and make sure that my head does not go below the heart. Inhale, I come forward to a standing plank, and then exhale, maybe come a little bit closer and do a wall push-up. You can do a couple of push-ups, and you can also do a little back bend here, even a little puppy pose. Inhale, and then exhale back to downward facing dog. On the next inhale, you walk a little bit closer, and then extend the arms up, Ardha Hastasana. Exhale back to Tadasana. So it does look a little bit like you're worshipping a wall, but actually even just from that, I feel a really nice opening through my back, and also you're protecting your lower back and your blood pressure, most importantly. So that's a really nice variation as your 3 options for Surya Namaskar A. For Surya Namaskar B, just another common sequence that you'll see in a lot of Ashtanga based or Vinyasa classes, where you do a lot of up and down, again between downward dogs. This is what I would recommend. So depending on the state of your pregnancy, you go from the back of the mat or the front. I'm going to go from the back. As I inhale, I bend my knees, push my knees out slightly to give space for my bump, lift the arms up high, exhale, fold, Uttanasana. Inhale, I walk my hands forward. Exhale, knees down, take a little cat-cow or a half chaturanga, whichever you feel more energized or inclined to do, and then exhale to downward dog. Okay, if stepping forward is not a problem, then you can step the feet slightly together, then step the right foot forward, back, heel goes down, rise up to Virabhadrasana 1, Warrior 1. And then instead of going down and doing that crazy jump through and everything, I just take a couple of breaths here, and then when everyone else is doing the left side, I switch legs. I step forward, send my other leg back, do my Virabhadrasana 1, my Warrior 1 on the other side, releasing the palms, taking a little bit of shoulder mobility as I lift the arms and open the arms. And then when I'm ready, then I can frame my front foot, or I can go straight back to downward facing dog. And then when everyone is getting ready to get up, I walk my hands back to my feet, lengthen the spine, exhale, fold. To finish off your Sun Salute Bs, you take a deep bend in the knees, lift the arms up, and then exhale, using the glutes and the power of your legs, you stand up tall to Tadasana, mountain pose. So as you can see, a really simple variation of the classic Sun Salutes and the classic Sun Salutes B that you can still do if you're pregnant, still participate in normal classes and just adjust it to your own tempo and your own needs. Just a minute. And then before I go on to discussing a few common ailments, common issues and how to work with them, just wanted to talk about the Savasana, the Savasana element. So what you want to make sure of is that if you lie on your back at any point during your pregnancy and you feel a little bit dizzy, that's a sign that your whole enlarged front is putting a lot of pressure on the vena cava, on your artery, on your main artery that is supplying oxygen to you, and you don't want to do that. You want to get out of it. The way to best get out of it is to lie on your left side, and you will know this from most of your pregnancy literature. It's always good to lie on your left side. If you do want to lie on your back, then you want to prop yourself up so your head is a little bit higher than your heart. So you would either lie with a number of cushions and blocks underneath you. So you can lie down like this for Shavasana, as an example. So as you can see, I'm not completely reclined. Or you can lie on your left side. And again, I would use props like cushions to bolster myself up. So I would probably use a cushion under my bump and between my knees and under my head, just so. And bolsters are obviously a very nice way to get comfortable if you have any bolsters at home, especially if you have more than one. And this is very comfortable. So always be patient with yourself and take time, because if you take time, that's when you notice if things are not quite as they should be in terms of your breath or your blood pressure. Yeah, so then moving on to common ailments. I just wanted to talk briefly about that. Give me one moment to make sure that I don't forget any of the common issues. Okay, nausea, dizziness, lower back and pelvic pain. These are the 4 I'm going to address before our Q&A session. So if you have any others, you can also add them to your questions after. So nausea and like kind of reflux is very common in pregnancy, simply because your stomach is being compressed. So a lot of things that would normally be able to go down can't go down as easily. And nausea is very common, especially in the first trimester, but it can last the whole pregnancy. So the thing that will bring nausea on very much is downward facing dog. For that, the best solution I have is to just do things against the wall and not have your head ever go below your belly. So doing the modified practices, there's so many things you can do against the wall, like for example pyramid pose as well, instead of going down over your front leg. You can do it here, you can do triangle pose here, just so you can do extended side angle, you know, without going all the way down. So there's a lot of things that you can modify just by using a wall and your own creativity. Dizziness and blood pressure issues. This is something I already addressed. So again, try to avoid going up and down too much. If there's a lot of flow in the class that you're practicing, just skip the flows and just stay standing in the standing sequences. Most teachers will go through a Vinyasa flow and then lead you through some standing postures, you know, whatever it is. Instead of going then down to chaturanga, just stay standing, switch to the other side, do a couple of breathing exercises or pelvic floor exercises while everyone else is doing their chaturangas. Third one, lower back pain. So as I touched upon at the beginning, you often will have added pressure on these discs because you're already compressing them a bit more, just because your belly here is big and needs space, and so you're kind of leaning back and increasing this lumbar curve. So what you want to do is, like I said in the beginning, instead of going deeply into this kind of sway back, lazy position, you actually want to engage some of your muscles. You can see how much I can engage my core to bring my belly in a little bit more. And it doesn't mean you have to be rigid and tense the whole time. It just means that you have a gentle, your muscles are online, so your muscles are alive and have a gentle engagement in them to support the weight of the front body. So gentle engagement in the glutes and in the lower abdomen to just draw everything into a more neutral alignment. And this is especially important when you do standing poses like warriors. Something that happens in warrior 1 and 2 and even triangle and side angle stretches, you stick your bum and your belly out in order to get to the position that you want to get. So this is warrior 1, for example, in a bad lower back position, or not bad, but it's just not helpful. So instead you don't want to go as low, and you want to tuck a little bit and draw the belly in so it doesn't go into the lower back. Same with warrior 2. I'll show you from the side. Oh gosh, if I can. So I'll try and show you maybe like this. So warrior 2, this is me just being floppy in my warrior 2, and this is me kind of engaging in my warrior 2. So you want to imagine zipping the zipper up and drawing the corset-like muscles of your lower pelvic area together. And then the last ailment is pelvic joint pain. So in my first pregnancy, after I was teaching quite a lot and also practicing a lot, because I was thinking, this is my last chance of freedom and I need to use it. And I would often feel kind of painful in this area after yoga, but I couldn't tell if that was because I was feeling very tight or what it was. And only after months and months, so around 7 months, when I was actually struggling to walk, did I understand that what I was experiencing was pelvic joint pain. So that's, like I explained at the beginning, relaxin just releases the tension in your joints, and so the muscles have to work extra hard to stay stable, and they risk being a little bit pulled and torn. This generally goes away after you give birth, but you can definitely make it worse if you do a lot of stretching in those areas during your pregnancy, which is what I was doing. So from 7 months onwards, I had to avoid all lunges, all things like lizard or even warrior two, even just spreading my legs wide in a forward fold would also hurt. So everything had to kind of be as if I was imagining that I'm pressing a cushion or a brick between my thighs together. So if people were practicing in a normal class, for example, if people are practicing, I don't know, tree pose or any kind of one-legged poses or lunging poses, then I just do, for example, a chair pose, which is squeezing the brick, or I can do chair pose against the wall. So these are all alternatives that are strengthening the stabilizing muscles, pulling things together instead of making the situation worse. And this time around, I actually started experiencing that same pain from 8 weeks onwards because of the hormones. So there's not even a weight of the belly there, but just the hormones are there already dislocating the joints. And so I was very careful, and I went to my physiotherapist straight away. She gave me exercises, and now I feel better in this pregnancy because of my physio exercises than I did in my first one. Because in my first pregnancy, I only went to the physio after 7 months when I was struggling to even walk. So that would be my lesson learned for myself, to be very mindful of any pain in this area, because it could be a sign of your pelvic joint pain as well. All right, so let's get to a couple of questions. I'll just be here and be able to chat with you and read out any questions that you have. While you type your questions, I'll just say a few things. I am teaching pregnancy classes that are for people who have been doing yoga before they got pregnant. And this is one thing that I'm really passionate about because I didn't really find anything like that on the market when I was pregnant, and indeed even now. Normally pregnancy classes in yoga studios are really great because they help with breath work, with meditation, with pelvic floor exercises. Okay, I'll get to the questions in a moment. But they're not that great for people that want to kind of still get sweaty and still have a flow and still feel like they've worked out a bit and got a real yoga class out of it. So that's what I offer, and if you're interested, then just head to my website and you'll see all the information there. I've also put together a program with my physiotherapist that I work with, and this one is called Mama Empower. So you can find that on also via my website. That's probably the easiest way. Yeah, just wanted to say these. All right, let me read out the questions. So, Enjoy is asking about what modifications can we do when the class is doing different forward folds like pigeon and others. And okay, I'll go through them one by one. So pigeon is a forward fold. You can prop yourself up or you can do it on your back. So propping yourself up would look something like this. See, I've got a lot of cushions. So I've got one cushion underneath my hip and one underneath my my belly, or my chest, sorry actually. So my belly goes just over my front leg, and then the cushion is underneath my chest just to help me stay up. This is one way of doing pigeon. Another way is to do reclined pigeon. Again, it's better to prop yourself up, especially if you're more advanced in your pregnancy like I am, as in further along. So reclining pigeon would be, for example, this. So you can see it's very similar to pigeon, or you can even just cradle it if that feels nice. It doesn't really feel nice for me, but this feels nice, and I press the same thigh with the same hand away. So it gives a similar stretch, just in a safe position. It also means that you're not putting the whole weight of your body onto your hip joint. So that would be my answer, Ina. Thank you for your question. Carrie is asking any styles of yoga that you would particularly recommend or avoid during pregnancy. So I would definitely avoid hot yoga, definitely avoid Dharma yoga. The reasons for this is you are operating on 50% more blood as a pregnant woman than normal, so you don't really want to be doing hot yoga because it could really mess with your blood pressure. And Dharma yoga is very much about back bending. I love it as well, but I had to stop when I got pregnant because it just is pointless. Like, you just have to modify the entire class, and I found it pointless. But these are just my personal opinions, so obviously you have to see for yourself. Beyond that, it really depends on how you know to modify and on what teacher you go to. I would definitely avoid any teachers that well, if you feel like I felt confident enough in my first pregnancy to go to a rocket class, for example, because I just knew how to adapt it, and I knew the teachers, so I knew that the teachers would let me do whatever I wanted, essentially. If you're not sure that a teacher would know to let you do whatever you want, then I would avoid that kind of class. I hope that makes sense. So it depends on your level of confidence to adapt, because a normal teacher will not know how to adapt for pregnancy, because we don't really learn that in our normal teacher training. I've done 2 normal teacher trainings and neither of them really taught me how to adapt for pregnancy. I mean, they do a little bit, but nothing like what you would learn in a pregnancy teacher training or through your own experience of being pregnant. So it depends on your own confidence of how to adapt the class. That's the other thing I would say. Hope that answers your question, Carrie. Kate, so any position that could help prevent lower back issues. So that's what I was touching on in the last part of class. When you are doing, so the biggest problem of lower back issues is that they generally develop through things that you do more of in your day. And with the belly, everything that you do more of just gets exacerbated because you're even heavier than normal. So if you have relatively bad posture and you let your bum stick out and your belly go forward, like I was demonstrating, then with the added weight of the belly, this gets even worse. So then you get even more pressure on the lower back. So you have to work a little bit extra hard to just draw everything into the middle. And that requires a little bit of muscle activation, both in the lower abdomen and the glutes. And the same thing applies to Warrior One. If you've been doing quite lazy Warrior Ones and other standing poses and just kind of going into a back bend, then with the belly, this just gets worse and it tightens this whole area even more. So you want to really lengthen the lower back and work on engaging all these muscles. And if you're not sure what exactly I mean, then I highly recommend working with a physio, and I can personally recommend 3 physios that I've worked with, so you can always ask me about that in a more concrete way, and I recommend my classes as well, of course. But yeah, I hope that answers your questions, Kate. Yeah, because you can strengthen because one of the reasons why lower back pain happens is because your muscles are weak in this area as well as in the deep core. The deep core is not necessarily your 6-pack, it's your transverse abdominis, so the other muscles that connect to it. Okay, last question. normal to have muscular stretching or tightening sensation in the upper ribs when doing cow pose? Samantha, thank you for your question. Let me have a look. So I didn't specify this just because there's a lot of poses that I would have to specify exactly how to do when you're pregnant. But when you do cow pose, basically you should do a cow pose with a neutral lower back and only open from the chest, so from the heart. As you can see, this would be me with a deeper back bend, and this is me with a lower back neutral, but still doing a cow pose. I hope you see the difference. So you kind of keep the tailbone slightly tucked and just open through the heart. And then when you round for cat pose, then you can go full on like a normal cat. But again, when you come to cow, don't go into the lower back bend. Keep the lower back neutral and only open through the heart. So through the sternum, through the chest bone. Reasons why you could feel tightening here are simply the anatomy of how your belly is compressing maybe the ribs a little bit. And also if you go into a deeper back bend, that could also cause it. If neither of these answer your question, then let me know in the comments. Okay, I can't see any more questions coming through now. I'll send the link to my page with the 5 principles of practicing yoga while pregnant. I'll do that right now and they will send it through in the comments. But in case you want to just Google it, then you can Google maggiejamesyoga.com, and in the blog you'll see the pregnancy related posts, also the postnatal posts. And if you want to know more about my pregnancy yoga, then you can just go to maggiejamesyoga.com/pregnancy. So it should be quite straightforward. I hope that helped. If you have any more questions, Samantha's was the last one, then let me know. Really sorry about the internet issues. I'm glad they were sorted by the end. I'm not sure what happened. I'll stay here just for a few more minutes in case any more questions pop up. But otherwise, thank you so much for your time. And if you're pregnant, congratulations. And take good care of yourself. I know everyone tells you that this is time to rest and to be safe and just to enjoy. So I won't repeat that too much, but I do hope that you can enjoy it. And I feel like the whole purpose of everything is just to bring more ease to your life. Like that's what yoga should do. It shouldn't bring more tension and more needs to achieve things. So as much as I love to have a dynamic practice myself, this is what I try to kind of bring everything back to in my classes as well. You're very welcome, Samantha. Very welcome, Carrie. And thanks, Kate and Ronnie and Carrie and Joy also for the questions. Have a lovely evening, you guys. Hope I get to connect with you again. Bye bye. Thanks, Ina.